Welcome everyone. So lots of exciting announcements today, really just big stuff. PortraitStudio is going to be on sale this Friday at midnight. So as soon as 1 a.m. hits, it'll go down to 50% and it will be on 50% off for 2 weeks. I'm trying to make it so that it's the first of the month so that you guys get your paydays. I got a lot of messages last Christmas about you guys missing on paydays, so I ended up extending the sale into the new year. Maybe until like January 3rd or 4th, and then I closed the sale. So the last sale like this was last December, and we won't have another sale like this one until October this year for sale season. And you know, Thanksgiving time and Christmas time, people like to send out gifts, make New Year's resolutions for education, for bettering their art. So that's the next time you'll have a sale like this one. So if you have it, if a friend doesn't have it, if you'd like to gift it for a friend, if a friend doesn't have it and you'd like to recommend it to them, to grab it. If you don't have it and you've been meaning to have it, I've been warning you guys not to buy it until June. I mean, those who bought it on full price, thank you so much. Thank you for all your support. I appreciate it. It all goes into my pocket. But for those who have been waiting, I completely understand the price is a bit steep. But the sale will start this Friday at midnight, so I hope it hits within your pay schedule. If it doesn't, send me a message. It might just go through, and I might extend the sale for you. If it doesn't, if you're the only person who needed a sale extension for June just because you get paid on a different time, message me and I can give you a promo code to use that'll give you the 50% off. And you can take that to the bank. So if I've watched this session and you did miss the sale, let me know and I'll give you a promo code. The sale is only for June. I'm only having it available for 2 weeks because around week 3 of June, before I take off for my birthday, there's an overhaul update coming up, and this overhaul update is massive. A lot of the features that you guys are waiting for, a lot of the features that we disabled and we've been trying to perfect are coming back. And Abu has been working tirelessly on this, really dedicating all his time to it. So we can't wait to showcase everything in the trailer. To buy PortraitStudio when it's on sale, go here, istebrak.com/store. You can be directed to the Mac store, and you can be directed to the selfie page, which allows you to pay in different ways. But you should pretty much be able to pay in all the ways that you need on my store, istebrak.com/store. It's $80 now. It'll go up to $90 after the sale. Because we're just investing so many new assets into it, and it'll be at 50% off. So it's 50% off the current price, so it'll be around $45, including all the taxes and stuff. Yeah, $45 to $50. I'm not sure. I haven't finalized it with Abu exactly how much, but we're trying to see which sale was most successful, which price you guys responded to the most. Staying fair to you and fair to us. Then, with the help of one of my mods, Finnegan, I have put together a 14-day challenge playlist. It is available on my front page, so you just go to Istebrak, youtube.com/Istebrak, I think, and you just go to my channel, scroll down, it'll be there. I think it's near the Just Getting Started playlist. It's right there on my front page. Yeah, god damn it, let me just go to it. And if you just scroll down, it's because I don't like the loading time. So if you scroll down, it is right there under the Just Getting Started. If you haven't watched through the Just Getting Started video, you really should. These are the lists. These are the videos I give my private tutoring students to get their foot in the door with my terminology. And just under that is the 14-day challenge critique hour. Oh yeah, if you guys want to send me birthday cards and stuff like that, my P.O. box is right there as well, just letting you know. And oh yeah, if you do send me birthday cards, send me some of your drawings. I've been collecting them, and I like to do a little video showing all the stuff that I got. So if you guys want to send me some birthday stuff, just cards, nothing expensive, please. I don't want anything expensive, just a card from where you are in the world. I love collecting them. It makes me feel like I've traveled. Me being so disabled, I don't think I'll ever travel, but I love seeing stuff from like cityscapes from where you're from, you know, how long you've grown there, a little bit about yourself, your online gallery, so I can find you. And please, not like last Christmas, please take the time even to just type out and print out your return address so I can return. I only returned to some students because I could not make what you were doing, and a lot of the postcards weren't covered, so everything got smudged in the process, and it was really hard for me to send out the thank you card. I got around like 20 to 25 cards, and each international stamp is $3, so that adds up. And I was trying to make sure that I was sending it out to exactly the address that would receive it. And then we have some more important things like the community challenge. So, okay, Reddit, where are you, Reddit? Geez Louise. Okay, so we have the community challenge. It's not up right now because right now I'm using the 2 spots for pinning just for the sale info. But the community challenge is a completely written challenge you have to draw for. It is an illustration challenge. And it is also due on the 20th of June, before I go on my break until the 4th. So the 20th of June is the due date officially. Please remember that. Let me see if I can find it for you. There's a Dropbox so you can get the resource pack. You can download the resource pack. Where are you? Oh, it's here, my profile. Let me just find the post for you. So Summer 2019 Illustration Design Challenge. I promise I'll repin it after this sale season. But just bookmark it. Bookmark it. It's Summer 2019 Illustration Design Challenge. Download this resource pack. Read through this. Ask any questions you're interested in me answering. Anything that you're confused about. Anything you want to clarify. Yes, it's both a character design and an illustration design because you're designing the main protagonist in the write-up. I wrote it. It's my own writing, and I really want you guys to push as far as possible. If you think about joining it, join it. It'll just get you some really, really nice portfolio pieces, and if they're not 100% successful, you still have some mileage behind you and a really, really fun critique hour to look forward to. I cannot wait to see all this stuff finished. Okay, and then we have another cool idea that one of my mods came up with this morning. All sales made from the 1st to the 14th of June, so if you bought anything from brushes to PortraitStudio, will be entered in a raffle, and the winner will win 3 to 5 private tutoring classes with me. So that's another way for me to kind of reward people for being a part of the sales season. So if you bought it for a friend, if you want to enter your name, you don't want them to enter it, you're interested in winning, all of the sales made, I will choose one random time within the 14 days, and we will just look for the receipt for that time period, and we will send out the reward, and I'll add you on my Discord. I'll brief you in the screening questions before private tutoring classes begin. I'll give you some homework, and then we get started. So 3 to 5, I'm still trying to figure out what kind of season I'm going to have, or semester, for the summer, considering I'm going on break as well. So 3 to 5 lessons. Most likely it'll be towards the lower side because I will be booking lots of students for the summer. But that's a really, really cool idea. Thank you so much, Sean, for that. So between the 1st and the 14th, if you buy anything from my brushes to PortraitStudio on sale, you'll be entered to win a raffle. Doesn't matter whether you like it or not, you're going to win. Or you will be entered to win. And then, so playlist done, community challenge done, PortraitStudio's done. And then finally, Patreon. So if you guys want to join for Patreon, any kind of support helps, even if you just join as $1. If all of you right now joined as $1, it would really help our community thrive. So $1 a month, it just curbs a lot of the taxes that Patreon takes. I wish I could do it without Patreon, but it's just so much more organized for me to use Patreon, especially for rewards. If you're interested in all the brushes I use for my private stuff, if anything that you see on Instagram, I upload it as a time lapse with all my instruction, all the decisions I made, all of where my mind was, kind of just talking like a design journal, exclusive to apprentices, exclusive to initiates and higher. So let's get started on today's critique hour. So last month I told you guys to paint some balls. Last session I told you guys to paint some colored balls, and I might be taking a look at a 14-day challenger because you guys have been going crazy with your 14-day challenges. Everyone's doing one nowadays. So I might choose one 14-day challenger. I'll be doing a 14-day challenge, like I'll skim through a lot of the people who've posted. But before we get started on any of that, I wanted to take a look at, by the way, why didn't enough of you upload sphere studies? Anyway, so what I wanted to take a look at is this submission. I'm seeing some of the draft and blueprinting for the community challenge right now. So much exciting shit happening. Holy crap. It's like we went for 2 months without nothing going on, and then just out of nowhere we have all this stuff going on, which makes the summer pass by a lot faster, unfortunately. But I'm loving this. I'm loving this. As I commented here, try a lower camera. And what I've done in PortraitStudio is I've kind of tried to duplicate, by contorting her body, I've tried to duplicate, some of her features and try to make her look like the inferi, so hide joints. And I'm just moving the camera around to just make it seem like, you know, we're focusing on the more interesting aspects of her anatomy. You can try the male or the female. It really depends on where you're going with the body type. But what I did, most of the features that I used have to do with the pinch feature, so it kind of changes the width of each angle of the dimension, so you can thicken things or stretch things out based on X, Y, and Z by using this tool, and it's the R tool when you click on the joint, and that's kind of how I messed around with her face. But when we're talking about a creature approaching, we really want to use as much field of view as possible, because what it creates is that emergence. We feel like we're actually being chased. We feel like we're actually being haunted. And not just that. So field of view is one aspect you could be using for your challenges. Again, this challenge is due on the 20th of June. Another thing you use is the camera angle. So look at how much more immediate things feel when the camera angle is high and we have that field of view shift. Of course, we have to hide her face because it's ridiculous to show the face. It shouldn't be visible until the last minute right before death. So we're using lighting here as a cinematic cue to signify that this is a dangerous creature. This is a creature that is approaching us. If it's a low angle camera and we're looking up at the creature and the creature is looking down, or the creature's neck is elongated forth and kind of looking down, that really adds that element of, you know, dominion, that we're being empowered, or something is empowering over us. If there is the flash that I discussed in the class, in the write-up, so there is like a massive magical flash that I added in just so that you guys have some kind of multiple light source system going on. So I wrote it, feels a little stiff because I wrote it for an illustration instead of the other way around. Just writing it for, not like just for imagination. So there's lots of light sources for you to be using, so you can bring in multiple light sources. So if the universal is required to create that feeling of mystery or danger, and if you want to shift the arm forward to be grabbing at the character, I kind of just fucked around with the I messed around with the joints because I want it to look like a zombie that's been reanimated, so its joints are no longer functional. So I kind of broke elbows and fucked things up where they shouldn't be naturally. So the anatomy kind of goes out the window, but you still need some functional anatomy. So I'm kind of just messing things around deliberately, kind of showing where the lag is. And I remember one of the hands that I wrote becomes dysfunctional because it gets ripped up. There's other intense scenes, more high action scenes, but lowering the camera, increasing the field of view on PortraitStudio are some of the ways to kind of involve the viewer in the action. So this looks a lot more daunting. I kind of want to thicken the arm up just a bit so it looks a little bit more strong, and kind of replace the joint to be a little bit more scary. And then the second character, which you can bring in another model for, the second character would just be here, kind of immobilized on the ground, looking up at the creature. And then the second light, of course, you can just bring in a point light, and that can come from below, illuminating the creature just slightly, so not too much. I would just decrease the strength just so we have something here. And then for adding character to the creature and its curiosity, we can just tilt the head and make it kind of question what its target is. And this is a great way to kind of create a scene. We don't have, unfortunately, zombie, active zombie animatable models at the moment. We have to make do. But in the upcoming update, what you will have is parenting, which is adding multiple models together and treating it as one model. You can unify it as one model group, and you can move it around as one group. So you can, if you wanted to create an extra curvy girl, you'd be able to have the body of the base model, which is super athletic, the female mannequin default that we have, but you can pad her with spherical areas to increase her curvature. You can shrink her waistline, you can extend the distance between her legs, and you have an entirely new model type to work from. You can shrink her, make her shorter, more like a kind of chibi-esque female body type, which is very popular now in concept art. So lots of updates coming up. Control Z is coming up. Tons of stuff, but one really big critique for this one, I want to see you succeed, I want to see you finish the illustration, is lower the camera. The camera is way too convenient. I'd love to see him kind of screeching and avoiding the light, but also the camera is just right here instead of up here, because we'll feel more involved, we'll feel more claustrophobic. The light will feel like it's dominating, and for any object to dominate in an illustration, the light has to be high. The object, sorry, has to be high in the camera angle. You're always POV, you're always point of view as much as possible. There were some other community challenge posts I wanted to look for. Why isn't it showing me community challenge? Something's wrong with Reddit recently. Like this morning it wasn't working. That's weird, because I know you guys are posting to community challenge, but I don't know why it's not allowing me to see. Is it real? Is it really like nobody posted to community challenge? That's unusual. And then there was one more design. I'm loving this. I like the camera angle. It's a bit high, but I wouldn't say it's the best angle to be showing the body getting eaten up by the light magic. So you want to show the body deteriorating, kind of like, you know how in Dragon Ball Z when someone was getting blasted, the camera would be showing all of their body slowly getting thinner and thinner as they deteriorated. I really want angles like that, high action angles. Please, this is high action. This is great for concept, but I don't want any of the infrared in your illustrations to be this still. I want them to be mid-jump, mid-walk, mid-stride, something like that, high activity. But I'm loving this creature. I'm loving what I'm looking at. It really feels like it's athletic enough, but also stupid enough that it's still a creature. Be careful with creature and character design. You give it a face and expressions, it becomes a character. You give it no face, minimize expressions, and nullify its facial characteristics, basing it on the body, it becomes a creature. Even if it has human-esque qualities, a zombie is a creature by default. Alright, so just some quick stuff to maybe hype you up to get started. You guys still have a lot of time to get started. You have this week and all of June until the 20th to upload. I do not accept submissions, and I won't choose any winners unless you guys upload your work. You have to upload your blueprinting. You have to upload any work that you put in, any research that you did. And I'm going to take a look at some 14-day challengers and then the spheres from today, because only one of you posted. So for those who just started the 14-day challenge, was it that critique hour that I did recently that inspired you guys? Yeah, Annie, you forgot about the homework. Okay, so I'm looking for Finn the Human. One of our mods has courageously taken on the 14-day challenge. I don't know if Kyle posted his latest one. Looking at some wonderful improvement, and I'd like to see front view day 8, day 5, some early guys. Okay, so we have this one from Finn, and I want to see you succeed, so I don't want to see any of these mistakes carried over into our next class, your next piece. And I'm choosing one that's later, which is Finn's, and one that's earlier, which is this person right here. So we can talk about the scope of success and the scope of failure that you're capable of when it comes to 14-day challenge, why it's so important. And if you don't know what the 14-day challenge is, go to istebrak.com. Go to the community tab that I have here. The tab is just for you guys. It doesn't have to be here on my website, but it's there just to make sure you guys have everything you need. And if you scroll all the way down, all the information, all the Q&A, all the FAQ is down here. If you have any new questions and that they're not answered over here, please send me a message on Facebook. It's really easy to find me. Just click here and ask me the question. Say, hey, maybe you could amend that in the 14-day challenge FAQ. But the 14-day challenge is basically kind of the summer theme right now. Everyone's getting off school and everyone's kind of trying it. It's drawing a face for 14 days straight. Hopefully it's for 14 days straight. Some people have different ways of learning. Some people don't necessarily have the discipline or the drive just yet to do everyday painting, or the workflow, or maybe they're just a little bit slower at applying paint, or they're really concerned with their league rank and they'd rather get diamond than draw better. So it's most likely going to be successful for your discipline, all the habits that you carry with you later on, to try 14 days in a row. It changes the way you think, it changes who you are. And Finn is currently doing a daily one. So Finn, give us a quick little insight, like write up really quickly what it's like painting every day, what that's done for you. I know one of the biggest benefits of the 14-day challenge is it makes you more humble. Things that you think you were good at one time, you probably say, oh yeah, I'm pretty good with faces. And it comes down to it, and you're actually having a very difficult time figuring out how to render around a nose, how to manage value sharing, how to entertain your edge quality, and manage your edges. So it is a very humbling experience, and I recommend it to everyone. Do I have a tutorial on mouths? I have an entire playlist. I just linked you guys. Oh, I didn't link it yet. I have an entire playlist right here. I'm linking you guys on 14-day challenges, and you can look through those. I also have, you can do a video search history in my channel for just write mouth or lip or lips, and you'll come up with some results. So Finn says you start to realize what you don't know really quick. The crazy thing about what you don't know is that you don't know it. You just don't know it, right? So you don't have any awareness of the things that you are not seeing. There's nothing there, no indicator to tell you you're not doing this right. It's only through repetition that you pick up whether or not your edges are lacking or what your contrast is a mess. And of all the days that you've done recently, your contrast is very, very troubled here, Finn. So I'm going to be taking a look at this. And this one has a bit of an issue with the androgyny, so we want to talk about that. But before we do, let's talk about spheres and colors. One thing that I assigned you last class was do multiple spheres in different colors and different light sources. And the reason being is that a lot of you are having trouble cooling values down and warming values and not knowing what to do with the shadows. So, for instance, the red here, anyone, would say that this red is way too dark. If it was a bit brighter, so let's say you had the pure white reflector, select inverse. So you had that universal reflection value, and it was, the surface was super reflective. Then it would explain why this area is so black. Because really, really reflective objects, along with reflecting the nearby environment, so along with actual reflected images, we get a really high contrast. But you had a very mattified highlighter value and midtone, and a really, really blackish kind of shadow color. So when you're shading any color, okay, so every color is kind of different. Every color is an island. But when you're shading red, for instance, its most saturated form should, or the most saturated form of any color should be in the midtones. White has no color, black has no color. Let me demonstrate that for you if you don't believe me. So we have white, select inverse, let me just get a gray background. Okay, so we have pure white, gray, and pure black. And we're going to get a color layer. Color doesn't work for some fucking reason. I don't know. And we're getting that red and we're brushing it over everything. So it still works for the demonstration. Let's get any other random color as well. So the white and the black have no color in them. Only the gray areas are picking up on color, because grays are just in the midtone enough to allow color to be visible. There's no extreme absence of light or over saturation of light. Not saturation or the word you usually use it with, just too much light. Even whites that are just kind of up there but still have a little bit of gray are useless, because they're just, look at how white then pale then pastel that looks boring. Even blacks that aren't fully black yet behave very differently between different colors. Yellow, there's no such thing as dark yellow. Dark yellow is non-existent because yellow is so dependent on the light source being light enough to show it. Have you ever seen a yellow shirt in your bedroom and while it's dark on the ground it looks white? There just is not enough light in your room to reveal the saturation of that color. Blue, however, you can tell that your shirt is blue because it's going to, blue is the best color to have in the darker regions because it's a primary and it has its own little magnitude that still looks good. Of all these colors, blue is the best looking one because it works better black. It has lots of saturation in it. So you've got red, which is warm sometimes and cool sometimes. It can have blue mixed in to create a reddish purple. It can have yellow mixed in to create a warm. So blue is kind of a traitor. It kind of it's just jumping in between the fence. Red, I mean, sorry. Blue is its own little island. Anything attached to blue between purple or green look good dark. That's why you have greens that can be a little bit darker and still look really, really saturated. Still look great. These are some of the greens you use on foliage, more cool greens. And we can push all the way and it'll still look green. It's such a versatile color because it's got two powerful colors in it, primaries. And then we've got yellow, and yellow just does not have a dark. This, by our movement, just by moving in the usual way to darken yellow, this is not a color you use in anything without it looking like green. And take a look at this little trick here. We're going to choose a very normal looking yellow. Darken it just slightly, and it already looks a little bit more green than this one. And then we're going to choose an orange color and move the slider up into, we're not even entering yellow yet. And no. We're going to try a different color, so a little bit more red. Any shift away from red, so any kind of beige, which is, I'm just going to make it so that it's relevant to skin tones. And we shift this up, and it has tons of green in it, and it's not even entered green yet. It's not even in yellows yet. You keep moving up, it looks more and more and more green. And we aren't even in official green proper value. So there's no way for me to show you how green this is until I put it beside a red beige color or a pink color, a skin color. Now we're in green greens. Do you see that? Just any shift away from red results in a green. There's so many little tiny rules here and there, but they all stem from the color wheel. So if we can take a look at the color wheel, you look at opposing colors on the color. If you're starting skin tones and you haven't looked at a color wheel yet, you're really doing yourself a disservice. So yellow and purple, these opposing colors never mix, they result in a green. So any color on the exact other half of the color wheel will cancel the other opposing color. Any shift away from red and beige, any shift will result in more green. Any shift away from blue will result in a duller value. But because blue and purple are so dark, they're the exact opposite of yellow, which doesn't look good in the dark. So yellow looks horrible in the dark, blue looks wonderful in the dark. Green has that, still looks great without warming up in the shadows, but darken red and it starts warming up because it's its own color, it's a primary. And all these other colors are a result of the primaries mixing. Okay, so when we talk about colors cooling down and colors darkening, what happens to them in the spectrum? So they lose light, but some colors, again, still look kind of good in the dark. So you can saturate a red. So let's make a big red ball. You can saturate a red ball and go only so much before you start using another color. So we have very basic starting value. So this value here should be a mid-tone. So the value you start off with should be a very, very moderate color. So I'm just throwing that there. This should be a very basic red color that's going to have all the saturation you want to use. And look at the row I'm using. I'm using a gray row. I'm not using up here or down here. This is where the best colors are. And you can bet your pants you're going to find the best color on this layer here, on the center of the hamburger. So we're going to choose that value. We're going to fill that up, and that's going to be our max saturation. If you want it more saturated, less saturated, you just move closer to that far side. So there's a couple of levels now, a couple of things you have to caretake. You check your color wheel. What color can darken but still look red? And that's a purplish red. But what you did in your version was you just went to black. Never shade with black. Look at that pale color. It looks like someone sanded this off, or it's paint that's tarnishing. So write that back to me. You never darken with black. You never shade with black. You shade with a value that is responding to the value of the midtone. It's based off the midtone. Whenever I select any color, I drop tool the midtone first, so I know exactly what I'm doing. If you've selected a color and you're going somewhere completely irrelevant to this anchor point, which is the origin point, which is the midtone you chose, then you're going to completely get the wrong color, and that's what you did. You got this weird shaded, faded, sanded color. You have to start from the point of the midtone. I mean, how else is it going to darken without knowing what the midtone is? So we darken, and we can pull down into black, but look at how I'm moving. I'm moving in C shapes. All right, so I've darkened but maintained saturation. I'm not straight darkening and losing saturation. I want to stay within this saturation valve. Everyone squint your eyes. You see how there's only a small little margin for saturation before you enter no man's land values. Never ever start with values up here. Unless it's a glowing orb, unless it's some kind of light source or really, really hot glowing metal, you never use values up here or down here unless you want to paint something black or burned or scorched. Always start with the midtones. Never paint with values up here. This is exclusive to light sources in your painting. So we start with the midtone and we slide down with a C shape. But that's not the only motion you do. There's another motion that you guys forget about. It's cooling down the red. Some of you cool down by actually going into purple and painting purple on top. That's not how we cool down values. We cool down values by darkening while maintaining saturation and sliding through the door. Imagine there's a door between each world of color. You can't access one without going through the other. You have to politely walk through the doors and get to the new world of color. So we're cooling down the value. And look, there's a reason why they gave you two. There's a reason why they gave you new and current so you can compare. And this is an excellent shadow color for this sphere, and applied radially, it should work right away. So high feed, low opacity on my brush. I'm not sure why it's not working. Deselect, okay. And I'm darkening, and I still have saturation while I'm including this new color. My saturation is still there. And I haven't gone crazy and used all this black contrast that I don't need, because now we need to start talking about how to climb values. So go back to your main anchor point and slide values again towards the light, but you can also curve if you'd like to. You can continue the C curve if you want. So it's starting point. So let me just, so if this was our midtone, I'm going to just print screen this and show you the path that I'm using. Show you the path, what my brush is doing, what exactly is the path. So I'm moving this way for shadows and sliding this fella back. So wherever, so this point is this point. This color and this color are exactly the same. So to get to purple, I slide down and continue from the top down up until this region. And then for highlights, I do this. So I'm kind of staying away from excess saturation. I'm staying away from this no man's land. I'm completely staying away from this entire region because the origin point, which was the saturated midtone, vibrant midtone like a scarlet, has to stay within this region to become its ID color. Every color has like a tone to it, a message to it, a specific role to play. You can't just mess up. Someone hired you and told you this person has a red scarf. They're known for their red scarf. You can't go around picking values from here for this like really fucked up looking red scarf. It has to read as red. They're famous for the red. So you have to choose a red that is responsive to the narrative. So you have to start here. And this is highlights and this is shadows. So what I'm doing right now is I'm doing the exact same thing. My anchor point is the midtone. Your midtone is your anchor point through which you find all your other shades. Write that back to me. Japanese flag, yeah. So we're sliding up. And this is just one way we're including value. And what do? When light is attracting or light is reaching a point and climbing against it, we warm things up. Things get warmer because the light essentially is a universal, which is going to stay warm. So I'm warming it up this way. And again, I'm working radially, climbing the value up. High feed on the color, low feed on the saturation. And then radially climbing up. Alright, so this is the highlighter value. This is that mid-tone value. I'm just cleaning up that stupid gamma thing that results. Alright, this is very, very simple. There's one more thing that you guys are forgetting, which is the pure value, and depending on how reflective the object is, it will have a degree of pure white on it. This white can manifest based off the reflectivity or reflectiveness of the object. It can also change the entire value of the object depending on how reflective it is. And then it also decides, the magnitude of the light also decides how much bounce light is canceling out the shadow as received from beneath the object, creating the terminator. The terminator is just leftover core shadow. And to know where to put the core shadows, just follow this little demonstration. So imagine the light source was a camera, sorry. What the hell kind of camera is that? Alright, the light source was a camera, and whatever the camera can see, so the camera can't see past this point or this point, right? So this point and this point, the camera stops seeing. This is the horizon line for the camera. Imagine a little car driving on top. Whenever that car starts to like finally disappear, that's when you start your first motions for a core shadow. And it's just the highest point. You're literally just finding the high point of the hill, and in relation to that high point of the hill, depending on where the light source is, the high point can be here based off the light source. It's not the high point, but relative high point. That's where core shadows start. It's so simple if you just draw a line off the light source. Imagine where the light source is. Generally, you have this weird little blob. Draw the line. It'll tell you exactly where the core shadow should start. And this should be your first radial shade, slowly descending into the last one. So if in your spheres you have an inaccurate representation of the light source, it's because your core shadow is not addressing the light source. As for where to cut it, do I cut the light source core shadow here, or here, or here, or here? That all depends on not just the general two-dimensional direction of the light source, but the orbit of the light source. So is the light source here, 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 or here? So there's a difference between having the light source here or here. You have a different core shadow. Sometimes it's confusing. Some students like to do the half shadow. Whenever I see any sphere studies that have a perfect flat gradient from left to right, I just throw them in the trash, because I know you can make a gradient. Photoshop can make a gradient for you, and you just don't need to study it. What you want to do is create these piles of value. Oopsie. These piles of value as you shade, as you reach the high point. You're piling up your values. Same thing with the shadows. So red is a very easy value to mess around with. It's a very simple color to use. It looks good on all the different exposure levels, on all different contrast. Doesn't look as good as blue does, but it has its uses. One big thing you want to remember is to desaturate. If you're going to saturate anything, let's say you're doing one last little run of saturation, you want to remember to desaturate around the light source. Not that much. I'm just using the sponge tool. And saturate along the belt of midtones. So to make this ball look more red, I don't have to do anything other than saturate this belt right here. It's kind of exaggerating it for demonstration, but that alone will do so much. It's just the midtone at the end of the day that has the most color. But students, like the noobs that they are, throw too much saturation up here and it just looks off. It looks weird, because the more light you get, the less saturation you should have. White takes over. It's things that are adjacent to the light, like right beside the light, that really get red. And you can do the same thing. You can desaturate the shadows. Just by desaturating the shadows, they should look a little bit more purple, a little bit more blue. And then, of course, there's the cast shadow. The cast shadow is based off the exposure of the light, the strength of the light, the direction of the light. So, I I have to reorganize the cast shadow in a second, but it's based off the light environment. The cast shadow, other than having the shape of the object, has nothing to do with the object at the end of the day. Alright, so I'm just creating a very simple blur as well. Filter, blur. All the choices I just made for this cast shadow have to do with the light source and the room the object is in. Cast shadows are sharper, closer to the object, and more blurry the further they are from the object. Simple fundamentals that we're listing out. And the further they get, the more light can sneak in, and they get less sharp. The cast shadows are more see-through, I guess, and reflect more light. Sometimes bounce light that sits on top of the object can come from an ambient, so it's already like has been addressed in the general reflectiveness of the object. Sometimes the object has already addressed the bounce light in that it doesn't have a core shadow, or its core shadow is completely drowned out, because that's just the nature of the object's material. It's really super reflective. It'll reflect the nearby scene, and that's kind of how you make things look a little more realistic. So if you haven't been doing any of the stuff I just listed, any of the stuff I just showed, obviously now you know why you're having trouble shading these objects, making them look more realistic. If you're not using a soft brush, if you're not radial shading, if you're not saturating, if you're not using the mid-tone as the anchor point, if you're not staying away from black and white, if you're not moving with curves, if you're not shifting into warm and cold, these are all reasons why your colors fail. Let's try a little bit more of a complicated color together. I'm going to keep that cast shadow where it is. So any questions at all? Any questions at all about any color that drives you guys crazy? So let's find a green. Green is really fun because it's in between warm and cool, yellow and blue. And I'm just going to find a nice mid-tone anchor point. And this is great for leaves, learning how to shade a leaf. So let's say this is our mid-tone. It's a pretty generous color, pretty saturated. We're darkening in a curve. I'm staying away from the pastels. They're way too drowned out in like grays. Any shift towards gray is pastel. Pastel colors are deliberate. They have almost zero saturation. They're a slight movement away. And we're cooling. We're moving the yellow into its more blue neighborhood. And I'm applying that value here. Again, I'm not trying to go for contrast. Just simple, everyday values that we see on objects. It stayed saturated, it got cooled down, and we killed two birds with one stone. Same exact thing with the mid-tone. Find the mid-tone, shift into yellows, and scroll up in a curve. And always base it back to the current. If it's this much of a jump, you did something wrong. You have too much contrast. So for those doing the 14-day challenge and are looking at skin tones, you're going to have to make those skin tones function soon. Oops. So I'm shifting into a more saturated. And see how I did an upward left? So I did a shift towards the saturated because I'm trying to work with yellow here, not just towards white. So there's two areas you can curve in a C curve. You can curve this way or this way. Okay, and I'm just going to shift a little bit more. And I'm just climbing the value up. I'm piling those values. Don't have a lot of faith in my soft brush right now because it's a really tardy soft brush. Okay, and I'm just moving along the longitude and latitude lines. And then so now I have a mid-tone, I have a highlighter that's yellow, and I have a shadow value that's cool. All I have left to do now is bring in the pure white, which a lot of you forget. This is the universal value. This is the reason why we're seeing the object. This is what's going to make the object combine with its environment. If you guys skip this, you won't have a believable realism. You're skipping a lot. You're skipping the fact that there's a certain amount of reflectiveness to the object. Unless it's made of carpet, it's going to have this value to it. Even carpet colors have this value to them. And then we have our bounce light. I usually just throw it in based off the nearest plate of surface that's casting light upward. Again, if you want to saturate, you saturate along the mid-tone belt and that you'll get a greener ball for it. You don't have to interrupt the coolness here, and you don't have to bring in any highlighters there, you know, other than whatever you're adding here. There's more like actual different kinds of highlights. What they have, sometimes they'll have the actual light itself being reflected, so that the mirror reflection of the light as well as the illumination the light is causing on the highest point. But I wouldn't say any of that is that useful, because what we're doing is, instead of trying to build a memory of every single possible light source situation on a sphere, you're just using the geometric anatomy of the sphere as a guiding tool for what you're doing with your brush. So the sphere will eventually come back as a color, but as long as you have your core shadow in place and you can read the reference that you're working with, you can read the geometric anatomy in your reference, you have nothing to worry about. The way I teach is that instead of trying to force students to learn theory, I just make them learn all the forms that are the most applicable to objects. And then by looking at references, which we all do, you'll be able to read every reference because you have a vocabulary in that. And this is all I wanted for the simple studies. This is all I really wanted to see. Just cool movements and curves, response to the light source as the core value, and then just better reflection of the light environment. So making sure that you have pure white somewhere formulated in there. Really, really simple stuff. Your object will eventually become a more advanced object. It'll turn into something else. Sometimes I use just the gray of the value just right beside the floor. And that's essentially what is happening physically in the world. In physics, that is what's happening. For every new area the light moves, if it moves through a see-through blue cup, it'll adapt and inherit the color of that cup. So if the light is reflecting off the ground, it'll pick up the value and color of the ground. If the ground was red, the reflection would be red as well. So let's now try a skin tone, which is basically why we're doing all of this. Oops. And I'll show you what skin tones are, because skin tones have one really sneaky color in them, and that is yellow, because it's on the higher side of orange. Skin tones, outside of dark skin and super pale skin, we're talking the universal stuff you need to learn for your portfolio, just so you can have some colors in there, is this little lovely area. So it is in the top right quadrant of the map here. So the best skin tones that you could draw with are basically the skin tone region. So if we were to divide this little area here, oopsie, is up here. All right, the reason why skin tones work best in this region is because skin is translucent, see-through. Skin isn't this opaque, solid object, and it's just a bunch of really see-through tissue. It also doesn't come in a lot of color. It doesn't have that much saturation in it. We're not orange. We're not green people. We're pretty camouflaged, mid-tony, sand-colored people. And as an organ, it doesn't have that much color to it. There's not much pigment in it. We have pigment in hair when that runs out eventually. We have pigment in lips and that runs out. Maybe that's because of the blood. And we have pigment in lashes and eye color. And that will run out eventually when you go blind. So we don't have this super saturated value range for our skin tones that you guys are choosing values from here. This is absolutely wrong unless you're drawing a really badly tanned girl or guy. You don't ever choose skin tones. If at any point in time, put your hands up if you've used this, you know now not to do that. So put your hands up if you've used values from this range here. If at any point in time you've done this, really stop doing it. You cannot find the best skin tone values from here. Never, ever, ever, and I'm going to put a big red mark, never choose skin tone values from up here. Nobody is that pale. Unless they are glowing, nobody is that pale. The palest skin tone is right here, and it's the palest foundation you can find for women at the drugstore. The darkest before entering like brown or African or Nubian is somewhere here, and these are like the sandier, honeyer tones. There is one shift in skin that is not a shift in value, but it's a shift in cool. So you can have pale people that have a bit more red in their formula, so they look a bit more pink. You can have pale people that look a little bit more yellow, so they have less of that redness in their blush and their skin base. Oh my, that's too much of you. No, skin tones are never chosen from up there. That's pigment. Like if you were to draw orange lips, that's different because that's makeup, or orange eyeshadow. But never do the base tone up here from this region. This is just, it's just and then this is where you can get your values. That's it. Everywhere else is wrong. If you're doing African skin, if you're doing skin that is African skin, against popular belief, is not black. You don't choose values from down here. Nobody is this dark. These are no man's land values. No one is this dark, not even the darkest African person. Usually you have values that are from here. So there's this model that is super, super dark. She's beautiful. She's got this bone structure that's unbelievable. And the way the highlight captures it, that's why she's so easy to photograph. But she is dark. Her skin is super, super dark. Let me find her for you. I think I have her saved somewhere. No. Damn. I don't know where I put her, in which folder. Doesn't matter. Just search up super dark African model. She's really, really dark, and her darkest values are from here. But she shifts into purple. So that's the only varying factor. And a lot of these skin tones are shifting into purple. So if we were to, again, choose the most averaged out skin tone, which I recommend everyone to learn, we're choosing values from up here. I'm going to choose one that's a little bit more red, lively, and that's going to be my base tone. And you know exactly what's coming up next. We are choosing sliding into highlighters, also sliding into yellow, because we're factoring in the environment light. We're factoring in the yellow in the skin tone, which needs light in order to come through. All right, really simple, basic brush stroke, and then we're sliding into, find the base tone, slide with the curve, move down the slider into reds, and this is factoring not just the shadow and the coolness, but the redness in the skin that comes through. Okay, so my mid-tone kind of got away with me here, but that's okay. That's all I need. Alright, and skin isn't just matte. Skin has a lot of white to it, so I'm just going to use a white yellow, something a bit more warm and dark. And that's what's missing. If you're trying to plan this value, you won't succeed. Don't plan it. Just find it in relevance to what you've already done with your values. And remember, I'm using 36% and I have on transfer. So I use a fraction of my brush stroke on soft brush to apply the highlighter white. It's not using 100% because that's not going to work. That's not going to work, okay guys? So make sure that your values are a lot more cool. I mean, a lot more, your brush strokes are a lot more gentle. And then moving on finally is just to address skin tones that are super saturated, skin tones that have more blush in them. You could possibly move, you know, skin tones that come from a value range that is a little bit more dark. You can possibly move into this for a blush color, but only the slightest amount, and I would put it like somewhere far away, probably towards the reddest areas of the cheeks. And again, if we're trying to saturate midtones, we saturate the mid-tone belt. But you can look at how you can only go so far before it starts to look like something that is not skin. One of the biggest things about tutorial in skin, all of my tutorials, is subtlety is key. Subtlety is key with skin tones. And I'm just going to desaturate that red I brought in. So subtlety is key with skin tones, okay? And that's pretty much it. And the darker you go, the less saturation you use. So I would say pale Caucasian, olive Mediterranean, dark maybe South African, or we would call black. Okay, just up here. This is where averaged out black value comes from. It's actually really light. It's a brown. I don't know why all that stupid stuff came. Like, at least call us brown, you know, at least call them brown people. We're all technically brown or shades of brown. I just don't like the word black used in there, because it's like evil, and so black and evil like combined, and it's dumb. Just call them brownies like they call me. Subtlety is key in skin tones. Barack. So that's pretty much all I really wanted to see you guys do. For yellow, which is a really tricky one, let's do yellow together. Let's say it's a yellow ball. Okay, so let's go for it. Our base tone is pure yellow. So we're starting up here. We're already starting super high. So technically, when we're painting a yellow shirt or a yellow object, we're starting pretty high in the spectrum. And most of the time, we're not having a pure. So the darker we go, the more saturated we get. So we can afford, you can just go back and forth. We can afford to go pretty low, but still have yellow. We can also have yellow as a midtone, as an orange. We're kind of sneaking with our yellow use. It's not really yellow, it's a shade of orange or a degree of orange, and we're pretending that that is, I don't know why it's doing this, that we're pretending that that is yellow. This still looks pretty yellow, but it's orange. So try to, as much as you can, make the midtone as dark as possible, because there's only so far up you can go when you're shading with yellow. And most of the yellow comes through, with yellow specifically, not in the midtone. Most of yellow comes through in the highlighter. So you're saturating the most in the highlighter, and that's the key to yellow. That your saturation belt moves up into the highlighters. And everything else, from your midtone to your shadow value, is orange, because there is no such thing as dark yellow. Just like there's no such thing as dark light. There's no such thing as dark yellow. So we're shading along the oranges. And that's why so many students have trouble shading gold. They have no idea what to do. Gold is just super yellow in the highlighters, white reflection of universal, and orange everywhere else. There's no such thing as midtone yellow, or it's all orange, just like that midtone we found. And then we have our light environment highlighter, which is the pure white. A lot of you shade yellow like this. These are your values for yellow, for like a yellow shirt or a yellow scarf. You guys are giving me like, this is your starting yellow for the highlighter. Not that this is a bad color. This color has its role, but it just doesn't work well, especially if it's a nighttime scene and it's a yellow scarf. This is your midtone. This is your shadow. And this is all wrong. Because yellow as an ID, yellow as a value, as a color, as a thing, is a bright object. It requires tons of light. Like this color wheel right here. All these other colors are pretty applicable, except this freak. Take this into the color thingy and desaturate it. Okay, this saturation tool is absolute garbo. It actually ruins everything. I'm not sure why it doesn't work, but take I'm just desaturating with color layer. Control U saturation is garbage. That's why you should never use it. Take a look at what happens with Control U desaturation. It darkened the yellow, and this one which stayed true to the value. So be careful with that shit. Okay, guys. But yeah. Take a look how bright it is in relation to all the other values, which are sitting in the nice little midtones. Purple is pretty low. Blue is pretty low. Everyone else is pretty chill, except yellow, which is all the way up here. Yellow as a color needs lots of light. And skin tone has yellow in it, which is why a lot of you are having trouble painting skin tone to begin with, because not only have you been painting in grayscale for so long, you've been painting in grayscale, and you're suddenly jumping into color, and it's skin, which is a derivative of yellow. You're setting yourselves up for failure if you're not painting with values that are low contrast, values that are more mid-tone and moderate, and values that are accessible. So your mid-tone values, all of these are just a touch too dark to factor in yellow, so you should know you're actually borrowing from a Mediterranean dark skin tone. But apart from that, you have some issues here, Finn. So the closeness of the ear on the cranium really shouldn't be right there. What you have is this excessive swell to the cranium, which needs to be removed. Okay. So we're just blocking, I'm just blocking here. And then we've got the neckline and the jawline, which is just a touch too. I'm just going to give this some curvature because it's still organic. It's a touch too, it's asymmetrical first of all, and it's just a bit too windy. You're doing a lot of ups and downs, kind of looks like deliberate, maybe creature-esque features. I would say they're more fantastical. You know, like, you know, when we have jaws that do that, you know, it just seems like you're drawing like Hellboy or something. You want to really carve away at the transition of planes to be more delicate and curved for female characters. And females are a lot more difficult than you guys think. I mean, women are difficult in general, but drawing women is such a bad joke. Drawing women is more difficult than it seems. Yes, you have beauty to save you, but you have a lot of areas where you just naturally, maybe you're redrawing yourself, are inclined to bring in more geometry, and your character will suffer. Their read will suffer. You need more space at the top. Her head felt a little bit crunched. And I would suggest bringing the ears in just a little bit more. Ears that have a high orbit are a very specific character feature. I have a very basic question for you, Finn. When we had, I did one of my students today, I had the same problem. When we have a hill, and you can answer this, Buttercup. When you have a hill and you have the light coming from the top down, where does the shadow start? A, B, C, D. Where does the shadow start, you guys? Twiggy, those are very specific questions. I'll try my best to answer them towards the end. Remind me, at Istebrak me later on. So I'm just waiting for your answers. Where does the light start? A, B, C, or D? D. C. Directly on B. Oh my God. First of all, Lava, let me see Lava's answer. B. Excellent. So Lava, Annie, and Dovdev, and Keisha have the answer. B. The shadow starts on B. We draw a line. The shadow is, the light is the vanishing point. The line reveals the point where the light can no longer see. You, however, added the shadow right here. In fact, you had a shadow just lingering all the way towards the top. Why? This is a hill. And everything past this point, because the light is shining a lot this way, and it's creating shadows. The light can see. And this already has its designated shadow color. This is a form study problem. And the beauty of the 14-day challenge is that you discover, you know, these light problems that you have. So if the light is coming from the top and this is a cheekbone, your temple value should travel all the way down. And I'm just blocking this right, and that was a very big problem you had. And because of it, you ended up giving her an actual beard, not just a beard shadow, but an actual beard. Again, the exact same situation earlier in my class. And it's just, you know, it's common. They're universal problems. They're there. They're traceable. This is way too much of a value drop. So midtone, highlight, shadow? What? Midtone, look everybody. Highlighter. I'm not choosing exact highlight. Highlight. Midtone, 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 midtone. What? What happened here? Why is it such a massive drop? This is a complete annihilation of your form language. You've completely lost your form because you've lost what the right amount of, first of all, where your cast shadows are supposed to start, and the right amount of jump in between. Your background is pretty light. Why does she have an actual beard? All right, so I'll reintroduce that value for the lower part here. Uh-oh, I've disconnected. Can you guys see me? And I'm selecting so I can keep recording because the recording is okay. And I'm just deleting this shadow because we do need a pretty dark shadow. I mean, it shouldn't be that dark. Can you guys see me now? Alright, so that's all we need for the pocket. That's how dark you were. Unacceptable. And I'm just gonna continue. Can you guys see me okay? I did disconnect though, right? Yeah, it was just a second. Okay. Right, so I'm just placing in this mid-tone here. This is just the temple value moving up. I'm blocking that in. Way too much contrast on the mouth. Way too much. Unless she just had a pomegranate or, I don't know, some really, really stainy, like unless she had like a fruit roll-up or something, there should not be this much contrast on her face. Way too much shadow. Does she have cat eye makeup? No, she shouldn't on a 14-day challenge. You do not need this much shadow everywhere else. So you weren't treating the skin as skin. You were still working with some line dependence here and there. And I'm taking away, by creating like a mid-tone wash over everything, I'm taking away all of that excessive shadow you had. And again, I'm moving back, pasting, and deleting only where I know I really do have the deepest cavity I could have. And that would be, I don't know what I just did. And that would be radially deleting at the edge of the mouth. Shrinking my brush as I deleted. I shouldn't start with the mouth at all. This is bad. Start with the eyes. The darkest point in the nostrils. You have way too much highlighter there on the bounce light. The nose looks like it's closer to the camera than anything else. The crease of the eye. Crease of the eye line. Way too much shadow on the white of the eye there. Way too much. Any pigmentation, and that's as much as you need. Everything else looked bloodshot, looked excessive. Okay, she had straight up makeup going on. And depending on makeup is a sign of a bad artist. Because you're so conscious, you're so afraid of not having enough contrast. You bring in this kind of makeup way of hiding your mistakes by throwing a big shadow blanket over something that's difficult to render because you know detail doesn't exist in render. And I'm throwing a big light here that I'll delete away to get the white of the eyes back. So for the one here, if this was supposed to be male, it's reading as a male only with the eyes, but you have these feminine eyebrows. You've got these, this really, really slender nose, so you need to decide what exactly the gender is, what the gender is that you're going for. See how much shadow you had before. You only need so much, but you're really overdoing it there, Finn. So the soft brush that I'm not sure what brushes that you're using, but you need to get your blocks down. Your blocks help you assign values per region. If you're soft brushing, you will not notice these really, really excessive transitions of value. Now I'm just blending with a large brush, keeping that shadow below the cheekbone. I'm going to carry this highlighter a bit further out. So we've kind of lost the cut between the ears, so I'm just going to cut it here so we just have a good idea of what I'm doing in this area. Right, so you see what I'm doing there, and I'm just going to do the same thing on the other side, just so we can get some focus on the face. The ears are well done, but I'd say focus on the face a little bit more. And then if you are bringing in that cheekbone makeup thing, you bring it, it's very delicate mid-tone, and you're just adding in the most delicate addition of cheekbone and not destroy the light environment that you set up. And it's only towards the top. It's not really part of the beard anymore. It's its own separate makeup quality. And in the liquify, it has to do this. So I don't know if you were doing that before because the ears were in the way, but the cheekbones have to do this kind of deal for it to work. Go back to our lasso and make sure none of that shadow is above the cheekbone line. None of it. Select inverse. Okay, and then, oops, just cleaning this up. And then you have these very, very, very hooded eyes, but again, you threw a bunch of cast shadow on them, so I'm wondering if you can radial shade at all. So you have brushstroke number 1, brushstroke number 2, number 3, number 4, and we're climbing our value up. This hood is reaching towards the light. It has exited the eye socket. Yours is very flat. Look at how low her crease is. If you did have a hood to her eye, it would be like this. And all that shadow in this region gets canceled out. Eyebrows are much too close together, and the pattern that you have in the eyebrows is not really a usual pattern I see in eyebrows at all. Feels like a deliberate or overplucked eyebrow, I would say. Yes, the hairier part of the eyebrow is on the inside, but we also have very sparse hairs growing, and then we eventually get to the thickest part of the brow on the inside. So you need to start sparse. You can't just have this really, really chunky, low-hanging eyebrow just there. You have your eyebrow crease, and you also are not grabbing that forehead value and illuminating the area directly beneath the eyebrow with it. You can delete away at it so it's not illuminating the eyebrow, but we're still drawing the brow bone, and you did not have this highlighter here. You had maybe too much of it before, and then you completely got rid of it. And the whites of the eye are still too dark. Even though I did that little edit, they're still reading as very dark. I'm going to do one more touch. And I think you should stop painting the pupil and the iris now. I think you should get back into getting the right value for the eyes. Because eye whites have to at least be as light as the mid-tone of the eye. If they're dark, if they're in shadow, then that's different. They're not as white as the highlighter, definitely. But they have to be at least as white as the mid-tone, or slightly darker, slightly lighter. It's always towards the mid-tone range. Alright, so this is the color and this is the mid-tone. Pretty even. And she looks a lot more alert now. My eraser is not exact to your anatomy. So the darkest area in here now becomes the slight drop of value in the calf shadow. Slight. And the drop of value in the lower eyelid here, just towards the shadow of the eyeball. And of course, the lash line, which has to be the darkest area. She looked bloodshot before. And this is a good place to start for your next critique, like for your next challenge day. The upper eyelid space should be a lot more exposed to the light source. It's not that much in shadow. I think I've lost my pen pressure. Okay, And then we have a much more kind of believable face structure to this head now, because we're no longer dominated by these overpowering shadows. And I think her eyes are too small for her head, just beauty standard wise. I think you should enlarge the eyes so they fit right in with the anatomy. They were a bit too small and too low. You were using way too much shadow everywhere else, my friend. So we have select inverse, copy the before. Yes, I'm showing the before. Before, too much shadow, head was flat, elongated on the cranium. After. Okay, so the ears can still be there. Before. After. I just wanted the ears back. Before. After. Too much shadow. Too much shadow. You were outlining. And then select inverse. Naturally, because of the glisten, the feminine glisten, we have just a bit more shine to the cheekbones. Just a touch more. Just because of the shine back and that glimmer. And there's actual makeup that, you know, that's just meant for cheekbones. Before. I think the shape of the eyes that you're using is a little bit questionable, kind of cartoony. I don't see a separation between inner and outer corners of the eye. But you're nearing the end, and I really recommend you go back and make sure your basics are all in order. No matter how many days you spend, basics are basics. They'll haunt you for life. And basics don't mean simplicity. Basics are fundamentals, and fundamentals are the big scary pillars that haunt you at night. Any questions at all about today's classes? So for this one, it's mostly to do with this excessive size up here. If this was a girl, you did it all wrong, because girls don't have downward facing eyes. So for it to look like a male, you need it here. Your temple shadow shouldn't start after the eyebrow, it should start at the eyebrow corner or arc. Continue down here. Men's cheekbones inflate deflate inward, whereas female cheekbones do the little curve. So make sure you're doing this with the cheekbone starting at the ears and moving down. The nose needs to be much bigger and down-turned. The lips are way too full, but we can have men that have full lips, and I would probably recommend a wider jawline. Okay, I also recommend getting rid of the black in the eye. Yes, it's cool and stylistic, but you should really work on not having the lash line so thick for the male character. Okay, so I don't have time to paint over this one as well, because I gotta get going. But I hope this was a closer eyes, definitely for the male. Excellent job, Fabiano. Of course, you can have women that look just like this, but we're trying to make your portfolio acceptable here. There are specific tropes and standards that you have to follow if you want your portfolio to be more than niche. So to recap on all the assignments from today, the announcements from today, we have the PortraitStudio sale starting this Friday at midnight, and it will last 2 weeks. So if you have it and you love it, recommend it to your friends. For anyone who doesn't have it, show them where to find all the playlists. If you don't know where to find all the trailers for it, just go to my my YouTube right over here and scroll down, and everything that you need to know about PortraitStudio is right at the top column. I recently made a 14-day challenge playlist for you guys, and I'll add today on top as well. A lot of the 14-day challenges of the past that got critiques are in here. It could help you get started on your 14-day challenge. If you don't know how to get to the Q&A for it, just go to istebrak.com and go to the community tab and scroll down to read the Q&A on it. Everyone should know how to draw a face. 14-day challenge is the best way to do so. If you want to support me on Patreon, if you like what you saw today, I don't work with any kind of promotion or any agency or any marketing. It's all just me running this by myself. If you guys want to help support me, you can go to Patreon and join, and go to the lower tiers if you want some of my content, full resolution JPEGs and PSDs, or join for higher tiers to promote, support me more, but as well get something back, an educational material. And there are challenges hosted monthly, homework hosted monthly for all skill levels through my Patreon. I kind of let you guys do your thing, and at the end of every month, we all meet and we talk about the submissions you did for your homework. There's a very big Colossus type themed assignment going on right now if you guys want to try it. And then there's the PortraitStudio update. It will feature a lot of new changes, including Control Z. And there is the community challenge that is due on the 20th of June. Thank you everyone for joining. I can see, where can I find a list of all the beauty standards? It's just based off references and based off taste. You're very, very welcome. So how do we go about changing how metallic something is? With reference, of course. Metallic means more clear an image that's being reflected, so you have to know the environment surrounding. If it's on a table and there's a lamp nearby, you have to redraw the table and the lamp with a circular distortion on top of that reflective material. And yes, you push contrast as far as possible without it completely changing the nature of the object, so you can't just use pure black and pure white. And the more clear the picture reflected on the surface of the metallic, the more black and white you use in contrast. Hair texture, the highest highlighted part of the hair is actually desaturated. It's either side of the highlight that gets the most hair color. You never saturate the highlighter in color for hair. You only saturate midtones in hair. Okay? Thank you everyone for joining. I'll see you guys next class, Thursday the 30th at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Bye everyone.